kindness is a sign of weakness, is a limiting belief that somebody heard that once and they hang on to it. I go into corporations and I shift the energy in companies. And people go, what do you mean energy? Why are you bringing energy? They think about their high school physics class, or they think about a full moon ritual. Well, with everybody
crystals and we're burning sage.
But think about two leaders. Okay, we're gonna think about the first leader that's notorious about not being kind. Okay, not being approachable. And he's walking into a team meeting. How engaged is that team? What's the body language? Then
you're
think about
sitting up straight. You're not moving. You're putting.
Think about another leader, not just any other ordinary leader, a leader that shows vulnerability, kindness. And you know what? If you don't think you're wonderful, 5 minutes in front of this leader, you're going to think they're the best thing since sliced bread. What's the productivity of that team? And what's the engagement in that team?
Hello and welcome to Voices with Talking Talent, the podcast that explores the real issues people face in the workplace. This is a space to have the open and brave conversations that inspire change and spark action. We're Talking Talent, and every week we'll be joined by a different guest. Stay tuned for discussions on the issues that business leaders are trying to overcome and what the future looks like for truly diverse and inclusive organizations.
Welcome back to Voices. I'm Queen, and I am so excited to share with you the voice that we have coming to you today, Nick Ferrialo. Nick is the CEO and founder of Elm City Coaching, where he is, if I put it in my own words, this is not what the website says, but really shaking up and radicalizing, is that even a word? The way people think so that they can change the way that they're working for the better. So please join me in welcoming Nick. Hey, Nick.
Hi, how are you? Very nice to be here. I'm excited about our conversation.
Yes. You stood out to me. I got to meet Nick virtually. You ever see people and you decide, okay, yeah, this is one of my people. You've never met them in real life, but I saw Nick in a panel and everything that he said was so profound and it had so much intention behind it. You're such a intentional person in terms of the way that you interact with people. You would think that we should all be like that. In an ideal world, we would be, but it's not. It's like when people say, hey, how you doing? It's almost like a salutation. Are you really ready to stop and talk about how a person's actually doing and feeling? But you live your life and run your business and treat people with such intention. And that's just something that I admire about you from afar.
Thank you. And I think you're spot on with that. Like so many people say, how are you? How are you doing? And then when somebody's actually explaining how they're doing, they're like, okay, how long is this going to take? Really? You're really going to answer that question?
Right. They've already gone on.
I really didn't care. I just thought it was nice to ask. It was nice to ask. The kind thing would be to wait, to pause and listen.
Now let's get into that. We have been raised to be nice. Be nice to your teachers. Be nice to your brother and sister. Okay, the new neighbors are coming by. You be nice. That I tell my dogs when they're being crazy with each other, be nice. So be nice. And we all know someone that, or have observed someone, in the media, entertainment, politics, or whatever, that we would not necessarily describe as a nice person, but you have seen them do nice things. So I'm hearing you say that it's nice to say to someone, hey, how you doing? But it's kind to be patient and listen. So the two are not the same, is what you're saying?
For me personally, nice is more passive, surface level. You be pleasant, be agreeable. You don't want to rock the boat. Being kind is being active and more, it's more soul-based for me. It makes a difference. Kindness, I got "Be Kind" tattooed on my arm right here, and this is, you could see it. I don't know if I don't know if we're going to be recorded video. And I got this tattoo in the smack middle of I was being corporate bullied because I was because I am transgender, but I was coming out in the workplace, and people were so mean to me that I decided to get this tattoo. Just maybe they saw it and they would like go, but it didn't work. And I love the tattoo anyway. But being kind is intentionally seeking out people who's struggling and how could you help. I have a story, if you don't mind me telling a quick story.
Please do. Yeah.
So I take a 3-mile walk every day, and I walk down a beautiful Court Street in Key, New Hampshire. It's beautiful. And I walk down, and all of a sudden this woman was passing me every day. And I used to work for her years ago. She didn't recognize who I was because I transitioned. And she was a type of leader that was scary. Very, very like into her work, had to be done, blah. And she walked around with a mean, like she was mad all the time. And I passed her a couple of times and I said, "You got to touch base, Nick." And I said, "Hi, I don't want to say her name. Hi, Blue Bob. How are you? I don't know if you remember me, but I used to work for you." And she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "How are you?" I said, "I just want you to know that you were one of the best leaders that I've had. Why? Because you taught me things that made a difference. You taught me things that I used throughout my career that actually got me ahead of the game. I had a very successful career, and a lot of it had to do with you." And she literally said, oh, okay, and then just walked away. 2 days later, I passed her again. She goes, "Hey, Nick." I said, "Yo, how's it going?" She goes, "Nobody has ever in my life said anything like that to me ever." She goes, "You don't even understand how that made me feel." She goes, "It made me feel like I've never felt before." And here's the kind of end of this story. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine calls. This woman that I just said all that to died in a head-on collision. Now, and the first thing I thought of was, I'm so glad. She would have never heard kind words in her life. So to reach out and to find people and really be vulnerable to be kind. So sometimes you have to be vulnerable to be kind. So that's the story I want to say about searching out. When you see somebody struggling, just how are you? What's going on? I appreciate you. Could change their life. And her life was very short.
Yeah. Not only does it take vulnerability, I think about for the workplace, for many people, it's going to also take courage, especially when you consider that this is not something that people are taught in business schools and in leadership development about being kind. As a matter of fact, some people might even think that things like kindness and empathy really don't have a place in certain rooms, that it might make you appear as a weak leader or someone who's not serious enough, or strong leaders wouldn't do that, or those are the type of qualities that people would ascribe to maybe certain types of professions. Teachers can be kind. Certain types of doctors or nurses can be kind. But people in law, in finance, in tech, some of these type of things, they should not be, or they may subscribe them to certain types of people. Maybe women in femmes should be kind, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's not what strength is. So what would you say to those who might think, I have somebody on my team that's struggling, but I don't want them to think that I'm, getting too personal, or that I'm, not a strong leader.
Yeah, that's very
I asked the CEO.
What a great point. What a great point. This is what it is. Weakness is kindness is a sign of weakness, is a limiting belief that somebody heard that once and they hang on to it. I go into corporations and I shift the energy in companies, And people go, what do you mean energy? Why are you bringing energy? They think about their high school physics class, or they think about a full moon ritual. Well, with everybody
right, crystals, and we're burning
but
sage.
think about two leaders. Okay, we're gonna think about the first leader that's notorious about not being kind. Okay, not being approachable. And he's walking into a team meeting. How engaged is that team? What's the body language? Then
You're
think about
sitting up straight. You're not moving. You're putting.
Now think about another leader, not just any other ordinary leader, a leader that shows vulnerability, kindness. And you know what? If you don't think you're wonderful, 5 minutes in front of this leader, you're going to think they're the best thing since sliced bread. What's the productivity of that team? And what's the engagement in that team? See, I was asked that when I was working in the corporate world, I ran a supply chain, and that was a full-time job plus. And then when Procter & Gamble took over, there was the production organization. People weren't even showing up to work. That's how bad it was under that leadership at the time. So they came up to me and said, listen, could you take over manufacturing? We need somebody like you in there and see what you could do. And we can't take away supply. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do it? But I was a production worker at one point in my career. I knew exactly how they felt. The only thing what I did is I said to everybody, I honor you and thank you so much for showing up every day. And I know how hard it is to do your job, and whatever you need from me, my office is always open door policy. We doubled production in the first month. Okay. And it was all because I was nice and kind.
People want to feel valued. I'm picturing this as you tell that story, because I know that there are some people who don't even know how to receive kindness because it's so rare. When you told the story about seeing the woman along your walk, it's almost like she felt uncomfortable. She heard it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then she kind of just went on. She needed to sit with that. And then she told you, wow, I've never felt that. And so now you've got these people working in this space, and they're working hard. Who knows what they've got going on at home, but they're showing up. They're doing a lot of not just mental, but a lot of physical work, and to be told something like that.
You bring yourself everywhere you go. And I was always I was always asked to coach. There was this one gentleman, this is why I became a coach. There was this one guy that the VP of operations said, listen, Nick, you got to talk to Mike. He's raging in the warehouse and we're going to fire him if you're his last hope. Took him in my office. And I said, what's going on? So he sits all back, all like schmuckatelli, and he's all like, well, they're all pissing me off. They're pushing my buttons. I said, okay, well, since it's your button and you created it, let's try to figure out what that button is. Within 2 sessions, he broke down crying. It was his gremlin, his bully within. He felt stupid. He went from a PIP to promotion in 4 months because his lenses that he was viewing the world through all the experience, all the leaders he had, all the family members that told him it was good for nothing, changed. So now if you change the way you see the world, your world changes immediately. So now he was walking into work, seeing it differently, seeing it as a positive place. And he knew that button, he could throw that button out, and which he did. So that's how I got my coaching itch to coach. And then I got my certification, a year course to take it. But that changed me. That changed my lenses. Being bullied all the time. I grew up in the workplace. When I first started working, I was a lesbian, very masculine lesbian, that I was fired at one job because I wasn't dressing feminine enough. And I thought I was dressing so feminine, I thought I was going to disintegrate every time I got dressed in And
when you said that, I cringed because I'm thinking Ray New, who who's our head of DEI here. She shared with me about how a time that wasn't even long ago, I think maybe 15 to 20 years ago, I won't name the organization, required women to wear pantyhose. Pantyhose. And or stockings, maybe that's the better way to say it. I don't know. Either way, that and heels what does that have to do with anything? But that's
But it's just, again, the way you look at the world. So he was a kind guy. He was just, his bully within was louder than him. So that was all good. I don't find a kind leader weak at all. I've had many leaders that were kind and some leaders that weren't. Now the ones that were not, I didn't want to go into work every day, which was, hey, I'm being bullied. Everybody's telling new hires I'm transgender within 3 days, and a head of HR said, well, you know what? This is your decision to do this, so I can't do anything about it.
Wow. You talked about how this organization, they brought you in for you to deal with Mike, for you to fix him.
Yeah.
And we know that it's not people all the time that need the fixing. It's the system, it's the organization. Yeah. So how can leaders of organizations, employers, HR teams that want to start to cultivate a culture of kindness, how should they be modeling that? What are some things that should be a part of their plan? Like, how does that show up organization wide, not just on the individual level? How are we able to impact organizations with
yeah. I mean, when you're promoting people, a new hire orientation, just a town hall, talk about what kindness looks like. Like you said, a lot of people don't even know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what does kindness look like? Maybe it looks like, hey, how was your weekend? How's everybody's weekend? How's your son doing? I heard he was sick the other day. Being vulnerable as a leader, being vulnerable, even a coworker to coworker, respect people's boundaries. What are boundaries? Do workshops on boundaries, do workshops on dynamic relationships, do workshops on, I do an energy leadership thing that I was telling you about. I do an assessment. How do you show up every day? How do you show up to work when everything's going great? And then what happens when stress is introduced? Because think about it. Everybody's all cool and all happy when everything's going great. And then you're missing a deadline and all hell breaks loose. Where do you go? And usually it's to victim anger, mean, not kind. How could you remain kind under stress? So have trainings on that. Teach kindness in the workplace.
It has to be taught explicitly.
Because I think, like you said before, like I said, we bring ourselves everywhere we go. You don't know what people are struggling with. I had a worker of mine who you would have never known her husband was dying at home. Okay. She was so kind to people throughout the day. Now, her husband did work at the company, and then he got MS. He got Lou Gehrig's disease, sorry. And he was dying at home. And we would hear her on the phone going, don't worry, I'll be home. I called them. They're going to help you with your breathing machine. I'm sorry. He couldn't breathe. And she's talking to him, hangs up the phone and says, how could I help you? She did not bring, I don't know how she did it. Okay. But that's what she was. That's who she was. Like, she was just that way. Some people need to be taught that, but some people are that. So how did she,
Nick, how do you challenge leaders? Have you ever gone into an organization where the leader is just a tyrant, a toxic, hot mess? Like, how have you dealt with that? Have you had to deal with the bullies like that you used to deal with? How do you help them to see themselves? Because there may be people watching this, hearing this, that as you're sharing these examples, they're thinking, ooh, I need to do more of that with my team. They may not be rude or bullies, but for those who may be able to acknowledge that they have been tough on people, what would you say to them, or how can people who work with them let their needs be made known?
As a life coach to the person that is that way, I would just, one word, why? Why do you feel the need to get angry? Why? And then what it usually is was there ever a time that you didn't react that way? Well, yeah, I didn't react that way back in like when I was in my mid-20s, because I didn't have all this pressure. Okay, so what happened between your mid-20s and now for you to react that way? And then teach them other ways to respond to stress, not react. You know what I'm saying? So when you have leaders,
I'm thinking of a person who's being bullied. If Nick back then, if you had an opportunity to talk with Nick then, and Nick is saying, I don't want to say baby Nick, but younger Nick is saying, I'm about ready to tell these people off. What
Okay, yeah.
do I need to say? Because they're already at you. Does a person who is being the target have room? Like, how do they advocate for a kind culture for themselves and for other people
Yeah,
too? Because they will probably they are going to listen to you because they know that that's why you're there. But when the coach is not there, when the cameras are not rolling, when
exactly.
customers are not watching, clients are not watching, how can the individual speak truth to power within their organizations about kindness?
Yeah. It starts at the tippity top, and HR is very, very critical when it comes to the culture of the organization. And, follow the leader. That one person that's getting bullied. For me, I'm going to be totally honest. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say, I needed my job. I didn't have HR to back me. I didn't have any of the VPs to back me, or even my boss. He was the worst one at the time. But then that other company acquired us and said, no more. We do not tolerate this. We don't tolerate bullying. We honor everybody that works here. And if you have a problem with that, you can leave. Or if you really have a problem with that and you're not correcting yourself, then we will have you leave. If you didn't click that little check that box that you were not a bully or not discriminate about anybody, race, diversity, anything, then you didn't work there. That was just it.
It had to come. Now I see what you're saying. Like, leadership has to model that, enforce that, ensure that for people.
Absolutely. Again, because the person that you're bullying might be going home and getting even worse. That's how it was for me. I was being bullied at the workplace. It made me so afraid. I was afraid and scared and alone during my transition that at one point I didn't leave my apartment because people were outing me. They didn't know how many people, how somebody they outed me to, hated transgender people. They wouldn't have seen a really cool Italian guy, They could have followed me home and killed me because transgender people get killed. So I was just like, again, I wasn't just transitioning at work. I was transitioning in my community, which wasn't fun at all. In Keene, New Hampshire, not fun at all.
Oh, and that. So we talked about people who are in the organization, whether they're the target or whether they want to be an ally. That's something we should also touch on too, because you needed an ally and an advocate in that time. But what are your thoughts towards people who are in the job search? We know this is an era of the Great Resignation, and a lot of people are rethinking what they really need for work, and they're asking for what they need. How can we detect what is happening in that organization before you even get in? What types of questions should be asked to help people uncover if there is actually a culture of kindness or empathy, if people really are about their values?
That very good question. Because I just, last October, I looked for a full-time job until, passion doesn't pay the bills, until Elm City Coaching takes off, which it is. But this is what I did. Sat down, I was in my interview, and the guy goes, "Oh my God, what a great resume. We'd love to have you on board. Oh my God, you do so much for the organization." I said, "Quick question. I'm a transgender guy. How are you about, I need to understand how you, not only you, but everybody that works here is going to react to that. Because I'm not, that's who I am. And if you can't accept that, please tell me now, because I won't work. I'd rather sleep in my car with my dog than work at a place that doesn't honor me, because I will never do that to me again." So just really seriously ask the question.
Just
So do you have an anti-bullying policy on LGBTQ plus? How do you feel about single parents having to work from home maybe a couple of days a week because, their kids are sick? Or how do you, anything that you're worried about? Ask the question right up front in your first interview.
Hey, you may as well. They need to know.
Well, you need to understand. Like, again, would you want it?
Right?
I'd rather not work at a place. Listen, I'd rather not work at a place no matter how good the pay or whatever. If I know how it feels not to be honored and having to betray myself every day. And that is for me, the worst form of self-abuse is betrayal. You know, knowing how I was gonna feel, but having to go into that building every day, I'm never gonna do that to me again. I love myself now too much. So
or to feel that there's something about yourself that you have to hide. A couple of things are coming to mind. I was a part of an interview team. This was not at Talking Talent. This was somewhere else. We will let them remain nameless. And after this candidate that we had, we're debriefing, and someone made the comment about their age, how they were older, you know, and how that's probably just not going to want to work. Now, what they did not know in saying this, that the person that they were describing as older, that I was older than that person was, but they had no idea how old I was because because of people's silly ideas about what certain ages look like. They just assumed that I was younger, although I'm not. And in that moment, I thought to myself, okay, I shouldn't mention how old I am then. And then another friend of mine here at Talking Talent talked about some statistics she saw recently about ageism in the workplace, and that if you are over 45 and older, you need to basically find somewhere and get there and stay and just kind of deal with it, because it's going to be harder for you to find work after a certain age, you know. So I am here for this straightforward approach in an interview where we should be asking things about what is your anti-bullying policy. I would even, along these lines, I would want to know, how are people mentoring and sponsoring people who are underrepresented in leadership? What is your plan to advance women? How many Black people are on your board? What are you all, how are you all involved in, you know, hashtag Stop Asian Hate? I want to make sure that you didn't just put Stop Asian Hate. What did you do? Yesterday, what was it, yesterday or the day before? We saw a lot of performative allyship for International Women's Day. But if you were to look at some of these leaderships, they have very few, if any, you know, women in leadership. So asking straight up.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I was on a committee for hires at my last job, and I would take the candidates and talk about our culture, our credo.
Okay.
And so I'm interviewing somebody in my office, and the guy goes, well, I went to Harvard. I forgot what one of the Ivy League schools. I think it was Harvard or Dartmouth. And he was like, where did you guys? I said, I didn't. He goes, you didn't go to college? The way he said that, I said, I want to work in here. I don't want to work in here. He judged me because I didn't go to college. And that was one of my, like, when I would sit with all the other leaders of the organization, and some leaders from Procter & Gamble would fly in from Cincinnati, and they go, okay, introduce yourself. And everybody would introduce themselves and then put what college they. By the time it got to me, my heart would go boom, boom. I was like, I said, my name is Nick Ferrialo. I run these two organizations, and didn't go to college, went right into the workforce. That's what I did. But it would be like, I was almost ashamed. You know, I was almost ashamed that I didn't, but now it's like, okay, whatever. But what does that person, that candidate meet your culture? And then when we flip it, does that organization meet your values? Don't work there if one thing's checked off, not checked off, don't work there.
Right.
I might say it might be easier to say that, but again, the pay is not going to matter if you don't feel that you could be true to yourself, or you don't feel comfortable in the workplace. Because listen, people are blown away when my age, I'm 59. Okay. And so when I was looking for a job, I'm like thinking the same thing. Oh my God, if they ever knew my age, but they don't ask that. And then when I say, yeah, I'm 59, people go, you gotta be kidding me. You're 59. But that it also for me made me go, uh-oh, ageism. Am I going to have to now deal with that too? Geez.
Right.
Well, now that I think I passed, I don't have to. I can be very stealth in a new job, but I choose not to be because I want to be me. And for the other transgender people out there, that we should be able to speak our truth.
Exactly. If at any time, and I guess whether a person has been in a situation where they're looking for a role right now, or even within the organization that they are in, if you have to compromise who you are, you're paying them. They're not even paying you.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Listen, you could, like we were talking about bad leaders. Leaders could be really great. Like they could produce, but you're taking 18 souls a day. What good is it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We got to think about kindness in the workplaces. Everybody just breathe and get your work done. I used to have every Friday at 2:00, I used to say to my organization, okay, stop, we're having Name That Tune. And we used to go out there with my phone and we used to play Name That Tune. Okay, everybody would walk by from other departments. And by the end, I had like 30 people. I had the CEO, the COO, I had all people from quality, just because it was like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
We laughed just as much as anything. And supply chain, that organization had the most stress. If we didn't get it in, they didn't sell it. Please believe me. But we pee laughed every day. Okay, because and then they couldn't wait to come to work. Imagine if I was a strict leader, who would want to come to work if the stress of the job alone, and then you had a leader on you? That just doesn't. They produce so much, and when we had fun doing it, it was because of that lightheartedness.
Yeah, people need that. There's too much happening in the world and in people's homes, just being kind. As sad as that story is that you told earlier, I'm happy to hear that, like you said, that this person did not leave the earth without being appreciated. And the idea that we might be the only voice of kindness towards someone else. And the other thing, as we begin to wrap up on the kindness versus nice, people can tell when you're just being nice. We've all experienced when someone was just being nice and was doing something versus when that they were. I'm kind of giggling because some people are gonna be like, okay, whatever. I was in one of my happy places yesterday, one of the most magical places on earth, Dollar Tree, yesterday. And I get to the counter with my wonderful finds, and I realize I don't have my money. I just ran out. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. You can go on and ring, her up that was behind me. So I started to put the stuff. Now I come to this Dollar Tree all the time. And the woman says, we'll take care of it for you. I thought she meant putting the things away. Because how sometimes you get things and you're like, oh my goodness, because nothing was bagged or anything. And so I start to walk out and she says, ma'am, we're going to take care of it today. She had put it in a bag and handed it to me. What? Yeah, that was an act of kindness. Someone has to pay for that. That takes some effort. Now, when we think about in the workplace, being kindness may not have an actual financial cost, but it might cost you your time. We started this with you asking how someone is. You may have to physically wait and be patient and listen for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think kindness, like, first of all, be conscious. You have to be conscious to be kind, because you have to really not be unconscious. I had a time in my life where I was kicked out of a relationship. It's a whole other podcast. And I was, I had to live in a hotel and I didn't have money and my stomach would growl at work. And there was a coworker that came by and said, I'm going to buy you lunch until you could afford it. Okay. Sometimes I get emotional because I didn't want to ask anybody. I was waiting to go home and eat my 2 pizza bites I rationed every night. Okay. And she would go to Burger King, get me a big boy's meal every day. And it was before my transition. So I was like, I'm getting the big boy thing.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind. I know her, still know her. And when I stop her and and when she's around people, I'm like, I want everybody to know who she is. This is what this woman did for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
So it's like, wow, a coworker was conscious enough to hear my stomach growl
Mhm.
and vulnerable enough to come up to me with courage because she didn't know how I was going to take it and
Yeah.
offer me food. Just like anytime I walked by two young people in a grocery store saying, we need Pampers, we can't buy milk. I found them, gave them $40 and said, go get whatever you need. I don't know them, but we have to help each other. That's kindness.
Mhm.
Kindness is just not saying, oh, well, why did they have a kid? This is what somebody told me when I told the story. Well, they shouldn't have had a kid if they couldn't afford the kid. What are you talking about? Why can't, if I didn't have the $40, I would have given him 20. If I had 20, I would have given him 5. I would have given him $1.
Right.
We have to be conscious of people's struggles around us.
And that part, I thank you so much for your time. And this is a wonderful way to end this. I like that you said, I say to people, let me tell you who she is, because kindness reveals a lot about who you are. Anybody can be nice. Like I told you, I won't even call the name about this leader who did the nicest thing that I saw on Instagram. Did the nicest thing, but that's not who they are at their core, because they're hurting people. Who you are can be revealed through acts of kindness.
Yep. Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Oh,
I
thank
can't
you.
wait to, I was here and I can't wait to go listen to this.
I had a blast. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. This podcast has been brought to you by Talking Talent. We're a coaching organization that helps you develop, advance, and retain your talent. Together, we can create a more inclusive culture where your people and your organization can thrive. You can visit us online at talking-talent.com. That's talking-talent.com. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review.